everyone, I'm Joey and today I'm going to share with you what is going to be the cheapest launch for the rest of the year. If you see over here, these are the land bid prices of the launches this year, and now that Lentor Gardens has already been launched, we are down to the next lowest land bid plot, which is Lentor Gardens Residences. But the big question is, just because the developer bought the land cheap, are they going to sell cheap? This is an overview of Lentor Gardens, and this is what the artist's impression is going to be like. It's going to be a very beautiful project, and what really catches my eye is the huge water body of this condo. Today, what I'm going to share with you is actually the brief overview of Lentor Gardens, as well as the buyer concerns of Lentor, especially Lentor Gardens, and also the safe entry price. But whether or not you are interested in this project, it doesn't matter, because what I'm going to share with you would actually be the developer's behavior and pricing strategy and how you as the buyer can benefit from this. Also, I will also be sharing about the layout analysis, which will be at the end of the video. If you just want to find out more about the layout, feel free to fast forward and watch till the end. Lentor Gardens is a project by Kingsford over here, as you can see. Total, there will be 499 residential with 3 shops. One thing we want to note is also that they actually have a total of 3 blocks, 2 of which will be 16 stories and 1 of it will only be 8 story. And they also have 3 units of Strata terraces. In this project, there will also be a couple of shops as well as 1 early childhood development center. One thing about Lentor Gardens, if you note here the unit type, they actually do not have any 1-bedders. They also do not have any 2-bed, 1-bath. In fact, the units will only be starting from 2-bed, 2-bath, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, the 3 Strata terraces, and also 3 shops. So where exactly is Lentor Gardens? Lentor Gardens is actually located over here, and today, Lentor Modern have already TOP'd. They have malls, F&B shops, childcare, and even supermarket that is already running in the Lentor area. So this is very different if today you are entering Lentor Gardens compared to those who bought in the initial plot of lands, because all the infrastructures and amenities are already up and running. Lentor Gardens will actually be a 5 minutes walk to the MRT, so you will likely need to cut through Hillock Park. If you actually Google Maps right now, it wouldn't be so accurate because the projects have not been ready and they will actually ask you to walk via the perimeters. One thing good about Lentor Garden Residences is actually the fact that it has the lowest perceived density. Why do I say so? Because if you take a look at the map over here, you will notice that the other plots of land, they are about 3.5 plot ratio, 3.0 plot ratio. However, Lentor Gardens Residences is only 2.1 plot ratio. This means that the project will likely be more breathable. Not only that, they do have the huge pool, which actually gives you a very resort living experience. So if you're an on-stay buyer that's looking for something that is not so crowded yet still walking distance to MRT, Lentor Gardens might be the project for you. For Lentor Gardens, a lot of the layouts will actually have very nice facing. Some of them will actually be facing the Hillock Park over here. The others will actually be facing the landed area and also the future development. Before we proceed, if you have any questions about Lentor Gardens or regarding any property in general, feel free to scan this QR code and I'll be happy to share more with you offline. Moving on to the buyer concerns of Lentor Gardens, I would say the largest concern that buyers have will actually be oversupply. This question of oversupply has been coming up ever since we have the first plot of land in Lentor Modern all the way to the 7th plot of land in Lentor Gardens. Secondly, I'll also share with you what is the safe entry price for Lentor Gardens, as well as one of the other concerns that buyers have, which is the low rental yield. Okay, so oversupply. Why is oversupply a big concern? Is because some of the buyers are thinking that, hey, if I buy into Lentor today with 6 other plot of lands, how am I able to exit? If you take a look over here, this is the total units that is available in Lentor. There's a total of 3,453 units if I include the upcoming Lentor Gardens, which has 499 units. But one thing I would like to share with you is that even though there is 3,453 units, do you know that as of today, there is only about 24 units left? Lentor Moderns have been fully sold out. Subsequently, Lentor Hills, which is the second plot of land, also already sold out. Hillock Green is the one that have a few remaining units of the smaller unit types. Lentoria is the smallest plot of land, and they do have a couple of units left as well. And then the next one, we actually have Lentor Mansion, which is the first harmonized project. And currently, it is also fully sold out as well. Then we have Lentor Central, also fully sold out. And next, we have Lentor Gardens, which is the 499 units that I shared about. So what do we want to know about this is that actually there is demand that has been actively consuming all this supply, tested over and over again across the 6 launches. So the last launch was actually Lentor Central Residences. In 2025, they actually sold 93% on launch day, showing that demand has been strong in Lentor. Not only that, developers actually are very confident in this area as well, with the latest GLS being sold to Guocoland at 1,278 PSF PPR. And not only just Guoco is interested, we actually see 4 other developers who were also looking to pump money into what we thought is an oversupply area. This is a crucial part of the Lentor story because if you see over here, you'll notice that the latest GLS is actually 38.9% higher than Lentor Gardens. So what does this mean for you if you are a buyer for Lentor Gardens? It means that not only you have support from the previous transactions from the last 6 plot of projects, you also have the downside protection due to the buffer of the next plot of land, which is going to be at least 30% higher than what you will buy today. This is the mark of confidence by developers on how Lentor and the overall market is heading towards in the near future. What I want to share with you is if you are a buyer with a very tight budget, you might not want to miss Lentor Gardens because this is likely going to be the cheapest launch for the rest of the year. Now coming back to the topic of oversupply, a lot of buyers actually forget that Lentor is actually divided by one important change. And that change is actually the change in the seller stamp duty period. Previously, when you buy a project or when you buy a resale condo, the holding period is actually 3 years. But as of July last year, the government actually changed the seller stamp duty period from 3 years all the way to 4 years. If we relate it back to Lentor, the first 6 plots of launches before Lentor Gardens are all 3 years seller stamp duty, and only Lentor Gardens and the 8th plot of land will actually be affected by the 4-year seller stamp duty. So as I shared earlier, our last launch is actually Lentor Central, and they will only clear their seller stamp duty and only start selling in March 2028. But for Lentor Gardens, we will actually only clear seller stamp duty in 2030. What this means is that there is essentially no new supply from March 2028 all the way to 18 July 2030. Let's say you bought a unit in Lentor Gardens and by the time you want to sell your unit, likelihood you might not have much competition because most of the units that want to sell have already been sold by them, maybe except for some unrealistic sellers. Just like Lentor Modern is able to exit at a pretty good profit because they are the first to exit. For Lentor Gardens, they will actually be the first of the second wave of the 4-year seller stamp duty to be able to exit, yet you are the one that's going to be buying the cheapest in the new batch. So what price is a safe entry price to enter Lentor Gardens? Lentor is actually a very interesting area to study because over the last 4 years, we have actually seen how developers' confidence and concerns have actually played a part in their pricing strategy. And I'll show you later how we can take advantage of developers' behaviour in our purchase. These are the land prices for the 8 plots in Lentor respectively, and let me show you why understanding developers' concerns can give you an advantage in your purchase. Back then, Lentor Modern, which is actually an integrated project with the mall and MRT, they actually launched at a very low PSF of 1,837. However, why do you think Guoco launched at such low prices back then? At that point in time, Lentor actually literally had nothing. If you went to the Showflat back then, all they had was actually an MRT, and the Showflat was located in the middle of nowhere. There was no mall, no amenities, no HDBs. Basically, they had nothing. You were literally buying into a promised land, hoping that whatever developers say that is gonna come up, the mall will eventually come up. So as a developer, do you dare to price too high and risk having low sales? Especially when you know that there's going to be so much more upcoming lands that are going to sell? This is the reason why a developer launched Lentor Modern for quite a low price. And Singaporeans will definitely not miss a good deal, which is why we actually saw 84% of the units being sold on launch day. Now, Lentor Hills Residences, which is the second plot of land just opposite Lentor Modern, they actually bought the land for 1060 PSF, which is lower than what Lentor Modern bought. After you see such a high take-up rate at Lentor Modern, and you know that buyers are willing to pay up to 2,513 PSF in this area, and now you are within 1 km to CHIJ St. Nick's and Anderson Primary School, which is one of the most popular schools in this area. Now, if you were the developer, are you going to sell cheaper than Lentor Modern just because you bought the land cheap? I don't think so. But on the other hand, do you dare to sell way higher knowing that you have much more competition upcoming? I also don't think so. This is why actually Lentor Hills, they actually sold from 1834 PSF all the way to 2451 PSF. I would say the pricing is rather consistent to Lentor Modern. Not too cheap, yet not too expensive. From here, you actually see that just because developer bought the land cheap does not necessarily mean that they will launch cheaper. So this is actually how we can take advantage of developers' concern of the perceived oversupply to our advantage. Because today, if you're a buyer for Lentor Hills, you can actually enter into a price that what the previous project have already entered for. Fast forward to Hillock Green, developer actually bought the land for slightly more expensive at 1,108 PSF. However, now if you're the developer for Hillock Green, you might be a little bit more concerned knowing that your previous counterpart have actually only sold 50% on launch day. So now if you are the developer, you bought the land more expensive, but you know that your competition actually sold cheaper than you, how would you price your units if you want your units to go? Hillock Green actually launched cheaper than what Lentor Hills sold for, despite the land being more expensive. The launch day sales averaged around 2,100 PSF, and eventually the highest price went up to 2,555 PSF over the years. So if you see over here, I would say the beauty of Lentor Enclave is that at every launch, buyers actually have the chance to enter back at the lower range of pricing. Why? That is because developers know that buyers have concern of the perceived oversupply, which is why we can take advantage of developers' concerns. So today, if you are the buyer for Hillock Green and you can enter somewhere on the lower range, which you know that Lentor Modern and Lentor Hills have already entered for, wouldn't you feel that it's a very, very safe buy? Similarly, when it came to Lentoria, you will notice that you are able to actually enter the project from 1,965 PSF, which again is on the lower range of what the previous projects have actually gone for. So why did I highlight the ones in purple? That is because Lentor Mansion is actually the first project that is harmonized, which is why you also see that the land prices are slightly lower. So now the big question is then, Lentor Gardens Residences, where Kingsford actually bought the land for so cheap, 920 PSF, the cheapest in Lentor, are they going to sell for cheap? Let's take a look at Kingsford behaviour in the previous launches. Based on my understanding of Kingsford, they are not the kind of developer that actually like to sell out 100% on day one. Why? As this gives them more room to increase their margins along the way. During the recent Chuan Park launch, we actually noted that the starting farm price was really attractive. However, on the launch day itself, we found out that it's actually only that one unit that is very attractive. The next jump was actually around 100k higher than the cheapest unit. And not only that, during Chuan Park launch, on the same day itself, we actually saw developers increasing their prices 5 times. So there is a good chance that Lentor Gardens, they might launch cheaper, but that might just be the starting farm price. And during the launch day, they will increase along the way as well, as they see buyers that keep coming in to take on the supply. So why do we want to study this? This is because if we can identify how developers will behave on launch day, how they price their units, then we know how we can benefit from this and go about buying. Let's take a look at an example for Chuan Park. This is a Chuan Park Stack 9, which is a 2-bedder 700 square feet. We noticed that on the same day itself, a level 12 unit actually bought 50k higher than the level 13 unit. And bear in mind, this is a 2-bedder. And even after increasing their prices 5 times on launch day, Kingsford actually continued to increase prices after launch. So this is a 3-bedder 1227 square feet. The very first unit, which is over here in the first line, the phase 1, they actually bought on launch day itself, and the person who bought a level 18 unit actually bought it for 3.2 million. Fast forward to February 2026, we see that a level 12 unit, which is 6 floors lower than the one sold in phase 1, they actually sold at a higher price of 3.3 million. And today, I would say that Chuan Park is actually in what we call the phase 3 pricing, and that a level 5 unit is actually asking for 3.254. This means that you are going to pay the same price for a level 5 unit as a level 18 unit. And if we take a look at One Marina Gardens, I would say that for One Marina Gardens, the demand is not as crazy as Chuan Park, which is why the developer did not increase price so many times on launch day. However, just like Chuan Park, Kingsford increment is actually not a blanket overall increase. What do I mean by this? You will notice that some stacks or some unit types actually increase more than others. So back then, a level 28 unit actually sold for 3.58 million, and today level 6, which is 22 floors down, they are actually asking for 3.7 million. So now if you're a buyer entering into Lentor Gardens and the unit type you want is going to be moving very fast, and you also have a very good queue number, I think there's a very high chance that at the end of the day, you might be sitting on a 300 to 400 PSF paper gain. To sum it up, I think this is Kingsford behaviour. Number one, they will definitely have very attractive starting from prices. And they also have the tendency to increase price not only on launch day but also after launch day. More importantly, they are pretty aggressive when it comes to initial launch pricing all the way to phase 3 pricing. So if you're a buyer looking to enter into Lentor Gardens, it might be a better choice for you to enter during the initial launch and let developer increase the prices for you. Not only that, we also see that Lentor Central's land bid is 38% higher, and Lentoria actually transacted 2670 PSF recently. And mind you, Lentoria is the plot of land that is the smallest amongst all 7 plots. If you are Kingsford and you know that the accepted prices have gone all the way to 2670 PSF, and you know that your next competition likely have to launch about 2007 to 2008 PSF, how would you price Lentor Gardens? So from here, you can see these are the 8 plot of lands, including the upcoming Lentor Central. You would notice, like what I mentioned, Lentoria has already hit 2670 PSF, and for Lentor Modern, they have already sold some units in the subsale market, and the range of prices in the subsale market is from 2001 all the way to 2596 PSF. The highest profit in Lentor Moderns we have seen so far is actually 500,000 in just 3 years. Lentor Hills, we actually saw a subsale price of 2276, but I would like to highlight that it's just that one transaction and the sellers actually sold it before the 3-year seller stamp duty. So likelihood it might be an urgent sale, which is why they also offloaded it at a pretty low PSF. Now back to Lentor Gardens. If you ask me, I feel that Kingsford would likely be launching Lentor Gardens starting from about 2100 PSF. But due to the next plot of land, they actually bought about 1278 PSF. This means that developer will likely have to launch it about maybe 27XX to 28XX. So based on my understanding on Kingsford, I feel that their last few units might go all the way up to 8XX PSF. This means that if you have a very good queue number and you are able to enter something from about 2100 to 2002, 2003 PSF, you are in a very safe range of prices. Why do I say so? Is because you are actually entering into what previous launchers have already entered for, yet you are much lower than the highest transacted price of this area. And more importantly, because this is a harmonized project, if you can enter at a lower PSF compared to what Lentor Modern buyers have entered, for example, you might be in a very safe position. And even if you want to enter at somewhere maybe around 2004 to 2005 PSF, likelihood you'll just be at the mid-range of Lentor Gardens, and you know that the next plot of land will likely still be around 200 to 300 PSF higher than you. This is why Lentor Gardens is such an interesting project, because today you are not buying into the cheapest land, but instead you are buying into positioning. You have the transactions from prior launches to act as your support, plus you have the future land bid to act as your downside protection. Furthermore, developer actually has a track record of increasing prices. So what I mentioned earlier, if you are able to enter about 2001 to 2000 PSF, likelihood you'll be sitting on paper gains at the end of the day. So now the last concern that some of my buyers actually have about Lentor is actually the low rental yield, especially since government has actually increased the holding period from 3 years to 4 years. Meaning to say upon key collection, there might be about 6 months to 1 year of vacancy period. This is actually a valid concern due to the supply in Lentor as a whole, and because this is mainly an own-stay estate. However, what I want to ask you is, are you buying Lentor Gardens for capital gain, or are you buying Lentor Gardens for rental yield? Because honestly, if you're looking to enter into a project for strong rental, I feel that Lentor Gardens might not be the project for you. This place is definitely more for own stay. So a property that performs well for rental doesn't necessarily equate to them doing very well for capital appreciation. Likewise, a property that has strong capital gains might not always have strong rental yield. Let me show you some case studies. So these are 2 projects, Uptown at Farrer, which is a 2 minutes walk from Farrer Park MRT, and another project called Affinity at Serangoons. I would say that it's not walkable to MRT at all. I actually selected 2 units that were bought in 2021, and both were sold in 2026 respectively. Over here, we actually see that for Affinity at Serangoon, the profit is rather decent at about 366k, whereas Uptown at Farrer only saw 1/3 of the profits of 130k. However, we see that for Uptown at Farrer, they actually have a very strong rental yield of 5,003. From here, we actually see that if you are buying for capital gain versus if you are buying for rental yield, there's totally two different strategies involved. Another example I have is actually Farrer at Bukit Timah and the Iberia, which is located at River Valley. Same thing, I actually pulled out two examples, both of them actually bought in 2022 and sold in 2025. You'll notice that Farrer at Bukit Timah, which is more of a own stay estate, they actually made about 312k, not the best but pretty decent I would say. However, the one at Iberia, they actually only profited about 132k. Similarly, for Iberia, they actually saw a very strong rental of 6,100 compared to Farrer at Bukit Timah, which only has a rental of about 4,500. So if you just want to sell after 4 to 5 years, I feel that maybe Lentor is something worth considering, just that you need to be okay with the fact that the rental yield might not be the best for the 6 months to 1 year. For larger units especially, because buyers that buy upon TOP, they actually do prefer something of brand new condition. I always tell my clients to be prepared to leave the unit vacant. Basically, you just need holding power. You need to have already planned for this kind of expenses, where you need to pay the mortgage, we don't have any rental income, before you jump into buying into a new launch as an investment. So once again, please feel free to scan my QR code over here if you do have any questions about how Kingsford behave, what are the pricing that you should go for. Without further ado, let's jump straight into the layout analysis. For Lentor Gardens, like I mentioned earlier at the start of the video, the layout types actually starts from 2-bed, 2-bath, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 3 strata terraces, and also 3 shops. One thing I like about this project, they actually don't have any 1-bedder and 2-bed, 1-bath, which means we might not see so much of the tenants, but more of own stay buyers. Besides the very huge water body that we see here, the lower density, I think Kingsford intentionally created Lentor Gardens with livability in mind. So if you see over here, the shorter block actually are all 3-bedders, and they do have 3 terraces tucked at a corner. For Lentor Gardens, they actually have a pretty good view. If you take a look over here, some of them will be facing Hillock Park, and some of them will actually be facing the landed area, and majority of them I would say they are also facing our pool feature. Let's take a look at the 2-bedders for Lentor Gardens. Okay, there's 4 layouts for the 2-bedroom premium. The smallest one is actually 646 square feet, and the other 3 layouts are actually 678 square feet. The majority of them are actually pool facing over here, and only the smallest unit is the one that's actually facing the Hillock Park. What I like about the 2-bed premium is the fact that they are all dumbbell layouts, and the 3 layouts over here, they have enclosable kitchen. And due to the fact that it's enclosable, I would say the dining tables, they actually have their own space. If you ask me, I personally do not like the P1 layout as much due to the galley kitchen. Moving on, this is the layout I love the most. This is actually the 2-bed premium plus bomb shelter. Same thing, they actually have a dumbbell layout on both sides, and the bomb shelter is over here. This is increasingly hard to find because a lot of the 2-bedders these days do not have any store or bomb shelter. And I think it's pretty impressive if you ask me that. And this is only 10 square feet more than the 2-bed premium. So if your queue number allows, I would suggest you to go for this unit. Next up, we do have quite a number of 2-bedroom plus study. The 2-bedroom plus study, they do have a number of facing. Some of them are facing the Hillock Park, and some of them are actually facing the water body. Similarly, I would say all are dumbbell layouts, and then they all have a study space over here. Okay, moving on to the 3-bedders. This is the smallest 3-bed unit type that we have, 872 square feet. Pretty decent if you ask me, because all the common bedrooms can actually fit a queen-size bed comfortably. And they have a tuck-in kitchen with windows over here. Over here, you're also able to build in an extra storage space or a dry pantry area. Next up, we actually have the 3 plus study, 936 square feet, also pool facing. And this is the layout that I actually prefer the most because they actually have the study space over here, which kind of acts like as flexi room. So if you have a helper, they can also use this room. You can use it as a study, you can also use it as a storage space. Next, we actually have the 3 plus study, 969 square feet. One thing to note that all the 3 plus study actually is located in the same block. This block will only have 3 bedders. Likelihood this whole block will be for people who are looking for own stay. For this layout, it's actually very efficient. It's a dumbbell layout with 1 bedder at the side and 2 bedrooms on the other side. They do have a bomb shelter over here, and they also managed to squeeze in a wet and dry kitchen. This is pretty impressive because for 969 square feet, the developer is able to squeeze so much things into this layout, which is quite value for money. The only downside of this layout, I would say, is the fact that the kitchen doesn't have any window. So next we actually have the 3-bed premium ranging from 1001 square feet all the way to 1012 square feet. This layout would be best for HDB upgraders that has a helper. Why do I say so? Because if you see over here, similarly you have 3 bedrooms, you have the bomb shelter. The difference is now that you actually have a yard space and a WC for your helper. Let's take a look at the 4-bedders. 4-bedders wise, I like the fact that the bomb shelters are actually positioned outside the main area. If you see over here, the bomb shelter is over here and the bomb shelter is over here for the C2 layout types. This is pretty good because it actually reduces the walkway compared to a 4-bedroom with the bomb shelter located in the middle of the house. One thing I would like to highlight is also the fact for Lentor Gardens, they are actually non-PPVC. What this means for you is that you actually have the flexibility to hack the walls. For example, if you are someone that prefers a larger master room but you don't need all 4 rooms, you can actually hack away this wall and then you have a larger master room. Whereas if you're somebody that likes to chill a lot in the living room, you can also hack away this wall and then you have a larger living space. There's a lot of flexibility in Lentor Gardens itself. Next, we have my favorite layout, and this is actually the 4-bedroom deluxe. Why is this my favorite? It's actually because of the landscape living. But one thing you want to note is that for the layout for P2, they actually have a much longer foyer. If I were to compare, P1 would definitely be my preferred layout for the 4-bedroom deluxe. Now moving on to the Strata Terraces, this is very rare that we only have 3 units, which is Stack 60, Stack 70 and Stack 72. One thing you will need to note, Strata Terraces haven't been appearing in recent launches for quite some time. If you are someone that prefer to have a landed living yet with facilities, this is something that you do not want to miss. For Lentor Gardens, we actually do not have any 5-bedders, but instead, they actually offer the Strata Terrace of 1496 square feet and they have 5 bedrooms. If you take a look at level 1 with me, you will notice that over here, we have the living and dining space, and then located at the back, we actually have the first bedroom, which is also what we call the granny's room. And then over here, we also do have the bomb shelter. And if we head to level 2, you would notice that they actually have 4 bedrooms. And what I really like is the fact that the bedrooms are all larger than most of the bedrooms you can find even in the 5-bed new launches these days. And the master room is really huge, so this part you can even do a walk-in wardrobe or you can do like a massage area. I would say that the Strata Terrace is perfect for those who want to stay in a brand new landed but find it a little bit pricey to get a full-fledged landed. So this is something that I would say is quite a good sweet spot. Furthermore, you not only get to stay in a landed, you also get to use the facilities of a condo. All in all, I would say that Lentor Gardens unit mix is targeted more for own stay with full facilities like tennis court, and they have the very pretty pool feature. They also have a lower density compared to the other plot of lands, together with a childcare in the project itself. So Lentor Gardens pricing will likely fall in the sweet spot of a lot of first-time buyers and also first-time upgraders. It's quite good for investors as well if you ask me, because there's an opportunity for you to be able to enter into 2022 to 2023 pricing with the certainty of infrastructures like mall that is already up. However, due to the positioning of Lentor Gardens and Kingsford behaviour, there is likely going to be a huge range of pricing. So at the point of purchase, you will need to consider how much developer have increased prices before you decide whether to go for your unit type that you're looking at, to switch to another unit type, or even to look at another condo altogether. So if you're looking at this project, please scan this QR code and reach out to me and I'll be happy to analyse more for you. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!